Hello everyone, my name is Cheryl Fogelhatch. I'm a white woman with brown hair and a ponytail today. I am going to make seed bombs. Start with this silicone liner and piece of construction paper that you tear into pieces and drop into a bowl of water. This bowl is cold water, but if you'd like, you can use hot water. That's what I did previously. So once you have the paper soaked, you fill the blender. I'm putting the wet paper into the blender and just taking handfuls of paper out of the bowl. I'm going to put another handful in, make sure it's, and then put the lid on this cup, and once I tighten that, I will be ready to start the blender. Okay. Now I've got a blended bunch of pulp that I'm going to pour in a minute. I'm going to pour it from the blender. The nice thing I'm realizing about using this big liner is that I've got a place to pour the pulp, and then I can put it into the liners. But right now I just have it as a pile of pulp that I'm going to move into the liners. I'm going to fill not completely, I'm going to put maybe half to a third of pulp in each of these liners in a row. I'm just moving from my pile of wet pulp to fill my liner cups. Yeah, and I'm squeezing it a little bit to get the extra moisture out and kind of compress it. Now I'm going to open a seed packet and pour the seeds into my hand. And then I'm going to start putting seeds in each of these pulp packets. Couple in this one, and moving left to right, couple in the next, and the next, and the final. And then I'm going to put pulp on top. So I'm kind of making I'm making a pulp sandwich with seeds in the middle. That's how I think of it. And I'm pressing and squeezing the water out as I fill the pulp. These make a lot of moisture. So I'm kind of squeezing the pulp as I fill the tins. And now I'm going to take a paper towel and keep blotting the water out of the pulp, because the water does blend the pulp, but it also, if you leave too much of it in, it's hard to dry. So I'm blotting out the water a little bit, and these will take a while to dry, but when they're dry, the resulting dried seed bombs look like kind of like little paper muffins. They kind of look like that, is the round, and they've adhered in the shape of the muffin liner. So, but it will take a couple days to dry, and I ended up putting mine outside on my balcony on a little table I have, just so that they could dry. But that's the end result, and the seeds are encased in dried paper.
Hello everybody, I'm Melissa Riccobono. I am a white woman with short hair that has brown but also some grayish silver in it. And I'm going to show you seed bombs just a little bit of a different style because not everybody has a cool silicone mold like Cheryl had. So you can also do this with little tiny miniature muffin liners. You can buy these at a grocery store. When I did it, I had 2 or 3 liners together because the paper is going to be wet, and so you want to make sure that your bottom of your liner stays as supportive as it can so that your bombs can dry. I'm also going to show you, because you can also make large, regular muffin cupcake sized. So if you can't find the miniature liners, you can also do it with just the cupcake liner. You can do these with a liner in a muffin tin, but if you don't have a muffin tin, that's totally okay because you can just use these liners by themselves. I'm setting these on a round tray. You could use a cookie sheet. You could just put them on paper towels, but the tray or whatever's underneath it just helps with any excess water that might come as you are wetting your paper and making your pulp and putting it all into your liners. So I'm going to put a few more liners out here. I don't know, I guess I'm going to do 2 of each size. So I have 2 of the little ones on my left, and I have 2 of the bigger ones on my right. And then you take your construction paper and you want to fold this and rip it into small pieces. When I did this, I only used 1 sheet of paper. Of course, the more paper you use, the more you can have for your seed bombs. So if you do want to make, if you have lots of packages of seeds, or you just want to make a lot of the seed bombs, you can use more paper. I found that 1 piece to start with was a really nice way to do it because I didn't have to worry about having too much paper or not enough paper. And that's just the way I did it. You can do it any way you'd like to. As you can see, there's a bowl of water here. I'm going to put this paper that's all ripped up in this water. The directions say to soak it for 20 minutes, and that's about what this has been soaked for. So I am now going to get my blender cup and open it up, and I'm going to put the paper into the blender. And I'm going to make sure that it's all at the bottom here. And this seems like a little bit big, so I'm going to rip up this paper to be just a little bit smaller. It probably doesn't matter too much with this blender because this blender is a big, powerful blender. And so you might not need your paper to be ripped up as small as I'm doing it, but I like to rip it up small. It's kind of fun. So I'm going to find my lid now and put the lid on the blender. Make sure it's on nice and tight, otherwise the blender's not going to run correctly. And I'm going to put it in and lock it in place. And then I am going to start the blender. If you're using a blender where the blade is at the bottom, like this one has a cup that actually turns upside down and the blade is in the lid of the cup, make sure that your paper is shaken down so that it actually is near the blade. Otherwise, the blade might just get air and not actually pulverize your paper, which would be problematic. So I'm going to start blending this because I shook it down. Oop. And I blended until I didn't really hear the blade crushing anything anymore. Other blenders might have an actual setting where it will just stop it at a certain time. It just depends on what kind of blender you have. My blade is actually in the lid. I can just take pulp right from the blender pitcher itself, and I'm going to squeeze the water out right in the bowl. And I'm going to squeeze it so it is pretty dry. And it's dripping through my hands. but you still have pulp. And I'm going to just put that pulp onto the bottom of these small liners. And I'm filling it about half full with pulp. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other small liner. I need a little bit more pulp because it wasn't quite enough. So I'm just going to get a little handful and again squeeze the water out. And if you squeeze the water out in this phase, you don't really have to blot too much with the paper towel at the end. It doesn't matter which way you do it. This is just the way I happened to do it. So this is filled up about halfway for both of them. The first one's a little fuller, but that's all right. It doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to take more pulp and I'm going to actually fill these bigger ones. And for these, I did a smaller layer because they're bigger area. And so I didn't really think we needed a super full liner. So I just did a smaller area of the bottom. And again, when I did these, I did just one piece of paper. So I pretty much did one bomb at a time. So if you do more than one piece of paper, you can do that. Just make sure that your blender can handle that. This liner is actually starting to drip at the bottom, so I'm going to put it back on my tray and I'm going to grab another of the liners and just put the wet liner into a dry liner so that it can actually become dry and keep its shape so that the bomb can dry as a round seed bomb. And I'm going to do the last one here. See if I have enough. Oh, plenty. And again, we're going to squeeze it out. And I'm going to just put it on the bottom of this liner. And really, there's no right or wrong way. There's no amount of paper that you need as long as the whole bottom is paper. That's really what the important part is. All right, so I have the paper in all of my liners. I'm going to get one more bigger liner for this one I just did, because again, it's getting a little bit wet. That's the only drawback. If you were doing this in a muffin tin, it wouldn't really matter as much if the liner itself got too wet on the bottom. And now, just as Cheryl did, I am going to open up a package of seeds. And these seed packets really don't have a lot of seeds in them. And so just as Cheryl did, I'm dumping them out into my hand. That way they're not on the table where they can get lost. You could also pour them into a bowl if you would like to. And I'm just going to put the seeds, a few at a time, into each of my seed bombs. So just from my hand to each seed bomb. And I have one more here. And we'll just make sure all of them. And then just as Cheryl did, I'm going to take paper and put it over the top so you have that seed bomb sandwich. I agree with Cheryl, it takes at least 2 or 3 days to dry. I have cats, so I made sure that the seed bombs were out of the reach of the cats because they're very curious and they love to climb. So I wanted to make sure that they stayed safe. So I put them up high so my cats couldn't get them, but also putting them outside if it's not raining is a really good idea. I'm just putting more paper into, so I have the 2 small sandwiches made, and now I'm doing the big one. It's putting paper into my big liner and getting more paper out and rinsing it out. Putting it in, smoothing it out. And I'm going to do one more. So I actually just had enough pulp here. I think it worked out really well, actually. And I'm just going to do this last liner. After I squeeze it, I sort of pull it apart just a little bit so that it actually goes into the liner and makes a more solid layer, I guess I would say, on the top. And so you have your seed bombs here waiting to be dried.
All right, I'm Desmond Jackson. I like to be comfortable when I'm working on crafty stuff and so forth, so I just got some comfortable clothes on. I got a gray shirt with some blue stripes and got some comfortable jeans, and so hey, let's make some seed bombs. So first thing I do is I'm going to grab a sheet of construction paper, and I would just kind of tear it in pieces. I don't have any rhyme or reason the way I do it. I just kind of rip it into little bite-sized pieces. Don't eat them. And then I would simply, once I get it small enough, just kind of drop it in a bowl of water that I have here on my right side. Okay. So I'm gonna be using an egg carton as kind of the mold for my seed bomb. So after I blend it up, I will get to that part of it as the mold. So I'm going to simply reach in here and grab a little bit of paper, enough to blend up, and grab a hunk of it and give it a good squeeze to get as much of the water out as I can. Okay, so I got it into a nice little ball in my hand, wet paper. All right, coming over to my blender on my left, I'm going to grab a cup here, and then I have the blades, which is also a part of the lid. So I'm going to put that on there, get it nice and screwed in place. All right, turn it upside down. I'm going to shake it just to make sure that pulp is down where the blades are. Okay, now I'm going to put the cup on the blender mechanism, pop it into place. All right, and then we are going to blend. Okay. Now, before I take it out, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my egg carton mold. So I just did one winner-take-all kind of seed bomb. And so I have, the egg carton I have is more one of the cardboard ones. You might have a different result in terms of how the pulp will stick to the carton and such if you have like a more styrofoam one. But since this is like a more cardboard, I figured the pulp might stick to it a little bit more. So I use wax paper. All right, so I'm gonna just take a little snippet of wax paper and put it into one of the little egg cups, and kind of stuff it in there really good to line it. All right, and then I'm gonna come over and take off my blender cup and screw the lid here, stick it to the bottom. All right, let's see what we have. All right, very cool. So I'm gonna take care a bit of the pulp and drop it into the egg carton cup. And as our other friends did, I will put seed bombs on top of that. So I got a packet of seed bombs here. Shake it to the bottom, make sure they're all together. So then simply rip apart the package. I'm going to dump them into the palm of my hand. So kind of have a nice little pile there. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to put these seeds on top of the pulp that I already have in the carton. Okay, I can feel that they're there on top of the pulp. And then, again, as our other friends did, I'm going to make a little sandwich. Put a little bit more pulp on top of that. Actually, I'm going to kind of make a nice ball. So I'm actually picking it all up out of the egg carton. And I'm going to kind of roll it in between the palm of my hand so that it's all kind of one ball with the seeds there. Okay, and I'm also kind of squeezing it a little bit to get a little excess moisture out. Okay, then I'll drop the whole thing back into the egg carton cup. Okay, and then I would just put it up away. I put it in a very high place in my kitchen, and I did it to let it dry for a couple days. And then I have here in my hand the result of what it will look like. So it's a nice, almost kind of a half ball that I have here. And there we go. So, all right, have fun.